Good afternoon. Oh, come on, there's 1,000 of you guys. You could do better than that. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Oh, much better. You know, a few months ago, I was asked if I would speak about values and ethics in leadership. And when I was approached, I said, absolutely. In my opinion, there is no leadership without ethical values. It is the foundation upon which leadership is built. And if we don't have it, your long-term success will definitely be affected. I want you guys to realize something. You're here to begin your journey in leadership. And leadership is really important as we go forward. I want you to think about something. There are more people alive today than have ever lived. Think about that. If we add up all the people that have ever lived, there are more people alive today. So if you don't think leadership going into the next few decades is important, you need to reconsider. Just to make sure everybody's awake, I want everybody on this side of the room to stand up. Just stay standing for a minute. If we were the workforce, the people standing up are the number of people that don't have confidence or trust in their leadership. It's pretty scary, isn't it? And we're the best economy in the world. How bad are other countries? Sit down, please. So it is really easy for us to think about the fact that maybe we don't trust all of our leadership. What's the impact on that? Well, there's a lot of studies and a lot of data done, and they will tell you that when you don't have trust in your leader, you can have increases in rates of depression for your workforce by 50%. Does anybody in here think that's a great idea to have more depressed people walking around your organization? Probably not great for leadership. But it's not just your mental health. When you have no trust in your leadership, rates of stroke can go up by 30%. Rates of heart attack can go up by 20%. And that doesn't even include the number of people that don't show up for work because they don't trust their leaders. So this step you're taking to become a better leader is absolutely the most important thing you can do moving forward. In companies where there's low levels of trust in their leadership, they make about 1/3 less profits than the folks that work for people where they have a lot of trust. So you guys can really make a difference. The difference between people that get stuff done because they have trust and people that don't is a difference in my mind between commitment and compliance. You can always get compliance. You know, when I go around and I do leadership training and development with corporations, and when I go speak with a lot of the corporate executives, they say, well, you have a lot of leadership experience. It's in the military. That's true. Most of my leadership experience is in the military. And they say, well, leading in the military is different. It's a little different, leading in the military. I usually ask them a question. How is it different, leading in the military? They say, well, in the military, if you tell somebody to do something, they have to do it. Well, that's true. We follow orders in the military. I usually follow up by saying, so imagine you're working for a large corporation and the CEO comes into your office, or a vice president, or your boss, and says, we have to do something. You can just ignore them, right? Because you're not in the military. Of course not. It's not how it works. You can always get compliance based on your title and your position. I'll prove it to you. I want everybody in here to raise their hand as high as they can. Okay, now raise it a little bit higher. Okay, how come you didn't do that the first time? I said as high as you can. The difference between your first raise and the high as you can is the difference between compliance and commitment. So as a speaker, I had a position and a title. You guys complied, but you didn't commit. I didn't either motivate you enough, or I didn't explain it well enough, or you didn't trust me. There's a few of you out there that didn't want to lose the cool factor, right? If I show that I'm too enthusiastic, the guy next to me won't think I'm cool. And then there's 10% of you out there, like in every group, that aren't even listening, right? You just looked over and said, my buddy's got his hand up. I should probably put my hand up, right? So I got you to comply. But if you want commitment, you better have leadership. And that starts with ethical values. Because before I answer the question, can I follow you? I want to know, can I trust you? Now, in the military, we have an acronym for the values of leadership. Of course, in the military, we have an acronym for almost everything. But our acronym for leadership is LDRSHIP. And everybody knows an acronym is the first letter of a word, right? So it's loyalty, dedication, respect, selfless service, honesty, integrity, and personal responsibility. And I could walk you through all of those values and probably give you examples of where I've seen them work and where I've seen them fail. But they didn't give me enough time to do that today. But I am going to walk you through a couple. The first is honesty. I'll tell you a little story. When I first joined the military, I was stationed right down the road here at Fort Dix. I was in a basic training organization. There were 2 officers in the company, me and a company commander. At every one of our training events, an officer had to be present. And almost every day, we had fitness training at 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, I was the junior officer. Who do you think spent most of their days at fitness training at 5 o'clock in the morning? Me. And one morning, I got a little bit of a late start. And as I drove into Fort Dix, trying to hustle to get there in time, I pulled up into the parking lot, and there was a car there already. And I thought, oh, man, I'm caught. I walked up, and the car belonged to a lieutenant colonel, our battalion commander, my company commander's boss. So I went up to him, and I reported and said, sir, Lieutenant DiNapoli, sorry I'm late. I gave him the report on the number of folks there and what we were training on and how many drill sergeants were available. I invited him to participate in our training. He said he had other units to visit, and he left. So we finished our fitness training, and I went back and got showered and got a uniform on and went to breakfast, and then went to my office. I sat in my office worrying, should I go in and tell the commander that I was late and that I was caught? They say that a coward dies 1,000 deaths, and a hero only one. Because a coward dies every day worrying about what's going to happen, whereas a hero just goes out and does it. Now, I didn't want to die the 1,000 deaths, so I went over to my company commander's door, knocked on the door. Hey, sir, I need to let you know, I was a little late this morning, and the battalion commander was already there. I got there 5 minutes late. I reported to him. I invited him to do the training with us. He said he was too busy. He couldn't stay, and he left. But I wanted you to know, because I realized even as a young lieutenant that unlike a fine wine, bad news does not get better with age. If you know something's broke, you better tell somebody. As I was getting ready to leave his office, I turned to go. He said, Lieutenant, I turned back. He said, you sure it was just 5 minutes? I said, sir, I'm quite sure the battalion commander knows how late I was. It'd be pretty silly of me to come in and change the amount of time I was late. He said, don't worry about it. It was only 5 minutes. And I could tell you that was the beginning of a great leadership relationship, because I was honest with my boss. He knew that he could trust me when things went wrong. He wouldn't get blindsided. And I found out that he was honest, because I never heard about that incident again. That's the beginning of a trusting relationship. Without those ethics, you lose that trust, and you will never get to commitment. You will only get compliance and leadership. Now, a bunch of you out there are saying, yeah, in the military it matters if you're honest, but not in the corporate world. In the corporate world, it's just about profits, right? Wrong. About 10 years ago, Warren Buffett, anybody know who Warren Buffett is? He's a pretty wealthy investor, right? He's done pretty well for himself with Berkshire Hathaway, one of the richest guys in the world. He was doing a deal with Walmart. The CEO of Walmart was Lee Scott. This was not some little deal. It was a $23 billion sale of a piece of Walmart to Berkshire Hathaway. These are deals that normally take months, if not years, to negotiate. And Lee Scott and Warren Buffett, over 2 hours and breakfast, negotiated the sale of this $23 billion unit. When they asked Buffett, how could you do that? How could you not spend the time negotiating the way you were supposed to? And he said, look, I've known him for 10 years. I trust Lee Scott. I know he's got integrity. And when he says something, he means it. That deal went through a couple of months later with almost no changes based on what they agreed to, and both companies thrived because of it. So when you start thinking that you can do well in business by not telling the truth or not having ethics or not having values, you will find it only works in the short term. The folks that are successful long-term as leaders build trust, and they build it based on ethical values. And you will see that throughout your career. Now, I know that a lot of you are just starting to get into leadership positions, and this is a great place for you to start your training. But I will tell you that leadership doesn't have a destination. You're never going to get there. I've been in leadership positions for over 35 years, and I'm not there. You have to keep developing. You have to keep looking for opportunities to improve your leadership skills. Because once you think you're there, you'll start to fall behind. Look for those opportunities. I am quite sure that in the near future that many of you are going to be in leadership positions. Boise State has a history of that. Now, I'm hoping some of them are the folks we sent from our Cherry Hill post at the American Legion. But I know that many of you will have that opportunity to lead. Just realize that you need to continue to develop and look for those opportunities. And I want to leave you with one other thought. Leadership is not always about focus on the job and staying away from other values. Your values translate across both business and personal values. Anybody know who Sam Walton was? He's a guy that started Walmart. Pretty successful guy. He was worth about $65 billion with a B when he died. On his deathbed, he said, I blew it. So you blew it? You built the greatest retailer in the world. He said, I forgot what was important. What was important was being a dad and being a husband, along with being a successful businessman. So realize that your values, your ethical values, they translate. And as you go through leadership training, realize that you need a balance in your life. I look forward to hearing great things about you folks in the near future. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you for a few minutes today, and I wish you Godspeed in your journey. Thank you.